In this video, we are going to be learning how to make a probability PDF table in Excel really quickly, and then kind of, I guess, analyzing that data and making it into a histogram so we can always also look at it visually and not just in a table. So let's come on into Excel. All right. Last video, we talked through why what we have designed is a binomial experiment. So this again was, we wanted to make sure that we have a situation where P plus Q, which is the probability of success, is P, and the probability of failure we call Q. And we wanted to make sure that P plus Q is 1, which is why we checked that there. Okay, so to come up with our probability distribution table, what we're going to do here is we've looked at a lot of these tables actually in terms of if you've seen in our progress checks and CYUs, we have the probability of X on one side, and that corresponds to that X value itself. So in these tables, again, what we're doing here is saying this is if the random variable X equals 0. In other words, if we have 0 successes, what is the probability of that? So if we recall from our last video, we are planning on hypothetically surveying 20 people and asking them how many candy corns are in this jar. And then we're going to be counting or recording, did they guess within 100 of the correct value? So did they guess within 100 of 343? So we're guessing, or we're interviewing 20 people, surveying 20 people. So the probability that no one guesses within 100 is what would go here. What is the probability that literally none out of the 20 would guess in this area? So I'm not going to find that probability yet because that's kind of the main point of this video is to use that function in Excel. But what I'm doing is setting up the whole table so that we can actually make this table very quickly. So in terms of the number of successes, that's what we're counting in this column. So when X equals a value, we're saying what's the probability, or that situation, we're saying what is the situation where there are X number of successes. So 0 number of successes, 1 success, 2 successes, and I will point out we're going up to 20. So in Excel, you don't have to just type 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter. What you can do in Excel here, and you could just do it after 1, but I'll do it after 3. So if you highlight these 3 cells, I'm going to go ahead and center them just because that was bothering me. But if you highlight these 3 cells, Excel understands and picks up on like the pattern that you're adding 1 every time. So instead of typing out all of these numbers, if you come down to the bottom right here and hover, again, I've shown in other videos, if you wait until that this like plus sign changes from a thicker plus sign to this thinner one, and then click and drag. So again, hold down on the mouse, click and drag down. And notice this little next to my mouse, it's counting. It's 6, 7, 8, 9. It's counting that for you because that's what it's doing in that cell. So I'm going to come to 20 and release. And now it has counted from 0 to 20 for me. I'm going to show you that again. So I know that this is a video you can rewind, but I understand that sometimes it's inconvenient. So what I did here was I told Excel I'm doing 0 and then 1 and then 2. So I'm telling Excel I'm adding 1 every time. If you come in here and highlight, Excel is recognizing this pattern. And then you can hover over the bottom right, click and drag down and go up to 20, and it will make them all for you. And now I'm going to highlight all of this and start kind of setting up our table to make it nice and neat and organized. All right, so what we're going to do here, for example, this is the probability that we have 0 successes. So as I was just saying, this is the probability that if we asked 20 people to guess how many candy corns are in this jar, none of them would guess within 100. That's what this probability is. Now, if you remember from our videos and our notes and such, the probability here, how we have previously calculated this, the probability that X, and I'm using my mouse so this is going to be messy, the probability that X equals 0 we found by combinations. So in this case, we have 20 trials. We'd be choosing 0 successes. So how many ways can we have 20 trials with 0 successes? And then we would be using the probability of success, which in this case, if you remember, was that 0.2955. We have that times itself, however many times of successes we're looking at. So in this case, we're actually looking at 0 successes. And then we're multiplying that by the probability of failure, which here would be the 0.07045. And we're raising that one to the number of failures we have. So the number of failures here, if we have 0 successes, that would mean that we have 20 failures. So I'm going to squeeze this in over here. So in theory, this is how we would be calculating this. And we can calculate this actually in Excel. I'll say very quickly, which we'll see in a minute. But I'll also show you we can actually calculate combinations really quickly in Excel. But the first thing I'm going to show you is much faster than even doing all of that. So I'll leave this notation over here, but the probability that we have 0 successes would be calculated in this way, where we're finding 20 trials, choose 0 successes. So how many ways can we have 0 people guess without outside of 100? And then times the probability of success raised to the number of successes times the probability of failure raised to the number of failures we would be having in this situation. So if we calculated this, and we will in a minute to show you exactly that this works correctly, in this cell, we're going to be using a different function. So this function in Excel, if you start typing equals and binom, so binom.dist, this is representing the binomial distribution. So if we double click here, how we're going to work with this, how we're going to work with this function. And again, if you remember from previous videos, what we're doing here is we're about to set this up to where we can make the whole table very quickly. So you don't have to do this for every single cell. So instead of calculating this every time, like you have in so far when you're having to do this by hand, Excel will do this all for you very quickly. So here, binom.dist, we're looking at the number of successes. So in this case, we have 0 successes. And instead of typing 0, which would be fine, we are going to click on the 0. So now what we're saying is not just the number of successes is 0. We're saying think that the number of successes is the value to the left of me. Okay, comma. So the number of successes, click on it, comma, the number of trials. So remember here we have 20 trials. We're saying we're interviewing 20 people. We're asking 20 people to guess. We assume that the probability of success in this case, just kind of making an assumption and going with it, is that 0.2955. Okay, this weird part right now, I can explain later, but right now I'm just going to tell you put 0 here. So cumulative, and you can see here what happens when you pull this up. It's what we'll learn in a future chapter is what cumulative distribution. It's kind of adding things, cumulative. If you remember like a relative frequency, like the cumulative relative frequency or cumulative frequency tables, we're adding things up as we go. So that's kind of what that is talking about. But right now we're going to say 0 because we want that to be false. We just want to focus on one value. We don't want to add probabilities in terms of the probability of 0 plus the probability of 1 people plus probability of 2. We just want to focus on this 1. And I know this is odd, but the 0 for us in this table will always be 0. It's not 0 because this is 0. This is 0 because we're saying false, and Excel interprets a 0 here as false for that value. Okay, so when I hit this, when I hit enter, what's going to happen is this is calculating this entire value. So if we were to calculate this the way that we have been by hand, it's going to come out with this number as soon as I hit enter right now. Okay, so this function in Excel calculated all of this in that amount of time. So I'm going to I know that first time I walked through that in like slower to make sure I was giving you a lot of detail, but I'm going to show you how quick that could be. Binom.dist, I click on the number of successes. I have 20 trials. My probability of success is 0.2955, and I say false or 0. Now if I hit enter, I have this number. And here's what's so cool about Excel is now I can hover over this bottom right and either double click or click and drag, and it's going to copy this formula for all of these for me. So look, now for example, this is finding the probability that we have exactly 5 successes. So this is the probability that if we went and asked 20 people to make a guess as to how many candy corns were here, the probability that 5 out of the 20, exactly 5 out of the 20, would guess between 243 and 443, we are estimating to be about 0.1825. It's about 18.26%. I'm going to go ahead and round all of these so that they are kind of easier to look at and center them. So let's maybe do this many decimals. Okay. So again, what we have found here is the probability that no one out of the 20 that we're talking to guesses within 100 is less than 1%. So that's a very, very low probability. The highest probability that we have here, let's see, the highest one is 6, it looks like. So, and 5 is very close to that. So what it looks like here is that most likely between 5 or 6 people out of the 20 will guess within 100 is kind of is what's happening, is most likely, because these are the highest probabilities. And I'm not saying that would happen the majority of the time. It's just that about 19% of the time we would assume 6 people out of the 20, if we were to repeat this experiment, would be guessing within 100 of that value. Okay. I will quickly show you how to calculate this formula. In fact, I'm going to erase this as written over that 20. How to calculate this in Excel if you do like doing that by hand, or if you prefer to do that by hand, but also it's just really good to know this combination formula in Excel. So if we type equals combin, what this is doing is it's doing the combination part for you. So the 20 choose 0 is what the combination is doing. So combin number, comma number chosen means we're looking at 20 trials and we want to choose 0 successes out of the 20. And then we have times, so we need to do that asterisk, times the probability of success, 2955, raised to the, so shift 6 is the caret, which is the exponent, raised to the 0 power, times the 0.7045 raised to the 20th. So again, we have the number of ways we can have no people out of 20 guess within 100, times the probability of success raised to the number of successes, times the probability of failure raised to the number of failures. That's how we're calculating this. And when we do this, we should get the exact same value that we have here, that I unrounded here so that we can compare these two. So when I hit enter, this is that value. This one's slightly more rounded, which is why that 2 turned to a 6. You can see here. So anyway, that is how you can do this combination. So another way to think about that is the number of ways, I'll say the number of order, you could think of that. It's like we could have 0 people from that is 20 choose 0. There's only one way that can actually happen. For example, though, if you wanted to look at the number of ways 7 people out of the 20 could guess within 100, that is 77,520 ways. You can't calculate that by hand. I mean, I guess you could. That would take a very long time to take into account all of the different ways that can happen. So this combination formula is so powerful, and it helps us calculate a lot of stuff. I just am geeking out emphasizing that. All right, the next video, we'll dive a little bit more into this data set.